Sorry, from 17 once again. This is my Thief Master Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 6, A Mana Pact. So we're playing as Vin Diesel and we're trying to get revenge on our murdered wife. Hang on a second. No, we're not. We're back in Northcrest Manor. So, yeah, hooray for that. You already know exactly where you are because you've been here before. You already know kind of some of the path that we've taken, but it's going to divert pretty quickly as it's a little bit more tricky and complicated this time. So, there is a valve in a room just to my left coming up, which will stop the water on this fountain. I believe it makes the people come and have a look and gives you an opportunity to sneak past them, but I never really used it. So I'm not going to. The only reason I've come down here is to get this safety save. There you go. And now that I've got that, I'm going to push forward and I know exactly where I'm going. I mentioned earlier in this walkthrough that there were a handful of places where I got legitimately stuck, and this was one of them coming up. Because when you get into this house, I did not have a wrench or any of the other tools, and I could not figure out a way forward. And there were two guards at the bottom of a corridor and a bird in a room to the right, and I couldn't find a strategy to get past them. And the other floors had traps which I couldn't disarm because I didn't have the tools, and I got stuck for quite some time because I couldn't figure out anything to do. And it bummed me out a little bit because every other section of the game had so many paths that if you tried hard enough and you looked in different areas, you could generally get a really interesting way that perhaps the developer didn't intend. But on this particular instance, it felt really rigid. And the reason I say it felt rigid is because it's literally a straight corridor and there's hardly any options to do anything but what the game wants you to do. And in the end, I found out a really sneaky way of pulling the aggro of the guards and then exploiting that aggro to move past them and carry on. But it was not fun until I figured it out, and I got stuck for a good half an hour on this particular sequence. And I do think if I'd had the tools, I would have probably been able to do a different path that would have been easier, but because I had an oversight and I didn't have them, it put me in a spot that made the game a lot less fun to play. And I think that's a bit of a shame, even though I can 100% admit it's down to my own ignorance rather than the game itself. I just think that the earlier missions seem to have a little bit more flexibility to them, and some of the later ones, it's a little more linear. But now that we've got in here, what I did just then when I dropped over the balcony, if you're too late on that, or you're too early, they will see you. You have to really time it well, because if you don't, it's immediate failure, which you should be getting used to by now if you're attempting what I'm doing here. But in my toils of trying to find a good way through this level, I found the secret room and I did the puzzle with the lion heads, which was cool. But you're not going to see any of that in the guide because I'm going to just take you to the strategy that I did. And be careful here, there's some traps. And I thought that was going to be a button to turn them off, and it wasn't, and I was really disappointed. So instead, I'm going to move really slow so I don't step on them. I should step lightly. But one of the cool things about this guide, I think, is you're going to see strategies, hopefully, that you won't see anywhere else, and that is one of the uniquenesses of stealth games. And I think the one coming up is probably going to be one of them, because it's just one of those really dumb strategies that turned out to work. The problem with it is because you're relying on the AI of the computer, every so often it doesn't, so you need to be aware. But I can guarantee that I checked this strategy coming up several times to make sure it wasn't a fluke, and it does indeed work. But if you get caught a few times, I know exactly how you feel, because so did I. So I'm going to grab a safety save here in the chest. In the wardrobe. I'm going to hit this candle really quickly so nobody sees me, and then I'm going to proceed here to shoot this guy with 2 blunt arrows, which aggroes both the dudes. And you're probably thinking, why the hell did you do that? Well, it's so that they do this. They start moving, they get really aggressive, and they give me their back. From here on, I can progress. Something to note, do not swoop around this corner. There is a bird cage and it will catch you every time. Second thing to note, where those guards go when you hit them with an arrow is kind of random. Sometimes they'll go into the room on the right, sometimes they'll go into the room on the left. All you're waiting for is the AI that is the kindest that lets you get past. If done correctly, you will do exactly what I just showed you then. Just be patient, and it will work. So the rest of the level is pretty simple. You know, I had no trouble with it, but that corner just there, because of the bird and because of those two guys, like 30 minutes of just hell, of just not knowing what to do. And hopefully I'll alleviate for that for anyone who's having problems with these videos. But mantle up. You want to be climbing across to the staircase. Do not go on the middle bit or they will see you at the bottom of the stairs because it's very well lit. And then as soon as you hit the top of here, there's going to be some climbing, which I suppose it breaks up the monotony of stealth maybe. Which is ironic because in Castlevania Lords of Shadows 2, they break up the combat and they're adventuring with stealth, and there it's kind of shitty. Because nobody plays those games for stealth, and nobody wanted those sections, and yet they are just as prevalent as all the combat is. Which just doesn't make any sense to anybody that buys those games to fight things. Jump around, see some mystical shit. Stealth sections? Really? That must have been an interesting developer meeting. Because how they didn't say, "Are you smoking crack?" to whoever there was the person who suggested it and whoever there was the person who said, you know, this is a great idea, we'll follow this through. But the climbing on this game is only as pronounced as I suppose you could make it. They give things away with a blue tint. A lot of the times it's just protruding shelves like these ones, but for the most they'll have one of those claw sections near it, or they'll just have a bunch of like gleaming blue pipes, as you can see there. Which I think works okay. It's kind of like the Uncharted yellow, and various other games have got various other tropes. But the end of this level is very intensive with dudes. There's so many people everywhere and it seems really intimidating and really tricky, but it turns out to be so much easier than the beginning, which I was stunned when I played it because it looked really intimidating and I ended up getting through it without any mistakes. And they're always the most fun areas too, because it allows me for the people who did have problems in those areas to watch something hopefully really good that gets them through it with very little effort needed. But there you go, there is the cutscene I've just trimmed out, and this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So after you've picked this lock, which I was tempted to speed up the lock picking stuff, but because I was only really going to be picking the important stuff, I've left it in. Not the most interesting thing to watch, admittedly, not the most interesting thing to do either, but what would a thief be without his trusty lockpick, I guess? So the strategy here is, once again, be quite cunning. We're going to follow this guy. Be careful, there's a guy on the left who joins him. Here he comes. And you want to avoid the glass, or whatever that is there. And you're going to follow them to the top of this staircase. The AI now goes a little bit random. The people patrolling will patrol. This guy here will either look at the bodies in front of him, or he'll wander and look in a direction. I'm picking up this bottle just in case. And as soon as I see him with his back to me, I decide to go for it. And it works. This guy will not see you if you are completely in this corner. Neither will this dude either. Once he passes, if you push forward, you can hit this area. And then to your right, you're going to come around a corner and there's going to be a safety save waiting for you in this cupboard. From this cupboard, all you need to do is go straight through that room that he's guarding. I need to be careful though, because you'll notice whenever the AI is aware of something, they will move randomly. There is no real predicting it, and because it is a computer, 9 times out of 10 they move towards you. It's that bullshit moment in video games where they seem to know where you are, so you need to be on your toes or you will fail. So thank you for watching, and you take care now.